here, and the festivities are about to begin here, right?
Yeah, they've sort of begun because the
I'm just
guys have
gonna-
already set it
I'm
up.
gonna go and watch in the background and take
Yeah.
the dome guru here now.
I don't know what's on the screen there. Derek is running the iPad as the roving reporter.
All
the
right.
On-site roving reporter.
We'll let you take the spotlight for a while, Dennis.
All right. I'm going to grab the construction manual. So this is our construction manual, 3-wing binder, inside of which there's a section, says riser section and dome grid. And this is what you need in order to put this dome up. And you want to study this beforehand. So I've enlarged the page that this dome is shown in the manual. So you're going to have a page like this. It's color coded. So everything is color coded. And it shows you the 4 different colors, which are the 4 different lengths of struts: yellow, blue, red, and black. And they're also A, B, C, and D. I've also crossed out the opening to the dome, which is this pentagon. So the first thing that we tell you to do when you're setting up the dome is complete the circle all the way around. So this blue strut, Dick will put the blue strut back in place over here. So basically, well, Daryl, you don't have to put it in. Daryl, you don't have to do that. But what I'm showing is that slips right in. With the complete circle going all the way around, you know that it's accurate. You know where all the riser walls are going to be. And we did this yesterday. We set the riser walls up and set this strut in place, and it went in the same way it just did. It slips right in. So now, when you want to get into the dome during the construction, you take out where the opening is going to be. In our case, and it's very unusual, we take out 1 strut to put it in opening. Usually it's 2 riser wall sections. So the blue one and the red one, or a red and a red, would come out of here for an opening, a standard opening in the dome. We've also preset the struts around the dome, and that helps us really understand with this diagram how this is going together. This is like a kid's erector set here. We've got the yellow, blue, red, and black over accentuated. We don't do, well, we could do this for you if you wanted us to paint your struts, but we color coded by spray paint on the struts. So that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get this bright color over the whole strut unless you want to pay for it. Or you're doing it yourself and you want to do that. Realize this, in this case, this is exposed. So we're going to see this. So that's why we did it. And the lumber that we're using is 0.6 treated foundation grade lumber. So this will last forever. So you're going to start putting up the vertical struts that we call them. And these are going up at an angle, so they're not quite vertical. We'll time ourselves here. I'm ready to go. Yeah, you guys have been ready here. You're waiting, I know. So I'm going to grab something here. What we have is our hub. This one's got a red anodized. This is the sleeve. That fits together. There's a pin. We're pounding that pin in. Cat just ran away. So what you're dealing with is they're pounding this pin all the way in, and it goes all the way in, and it's a 4.5-inch pin, and it digs through the aluminum. This is an aluminum hub. So it's digging through that, and we don't put a nut on the other end of this. It's also got a little taper on the end of it. Barely see that, but there's a taper on the end of this that has to be put in a certain direction. All this is explained in the construction manual. It's very detailed out. You also have a hub. A lot of you say, well, that's the peace symbol. Well, no, it's not. The peace symbol has one more line going down right here like this. That's the peace symbol. This, we've kind of graduated beyond that. This is the Mercedes symbol. So these days, that's what you're looking at. But there's a small hole here. These are not the same size. Small hole is here, and then these two are identical. So this hole and that hole are the same size, but this is not. This is a universal hub. We can use it for 1 frequency, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 frequency domes. So I had to adjust this opening here. So they have to put it in a certain way. On the riser wall, and this is the riser wall right here, the small hub. Derek, you want to zoom in on this part? Oh, you don't have signal. We're fighting internet issues here, but there's a small hole right here, and that goes down. On the riser wall section, there's a strut coming up this way at an angle and that way at an angle. So if you want to, okay, it works now. So the small hole is right here. This is the 2 holes in the opening here that are the same size. That line right here, this web right here, is vertical. That's what you want, because the strut is coming this way and the strut is coming this way. So the tongue of this sleeve fits in right here and right there. If that web was over here, you couldn't push it in. We've also got a 3/4 inch box end wrench that they're using in order to make the pin go in straight. That comes with your kit. So in order to get that pin going in, the pin is larger. It's a 3/8 inch bolt threaded, but it's larger than the opening that's left when this tongue from here goes into the hub. So that's why it digs into the aluminum. You've got to pound it in place. We give you 2 22-ounce hammers because that's what you need, a long handle 22-ounce hammer. That comes with the kit. This wrench allows you to, because sometimes it goes in at an angle, so it allows you to pull that back. So in doing that, it goes in straight. Really easy. You can see there. I say real easy, and it's getting pounded in. I should tell you that I won't say the guy in the black T-shirt, but the guy on the right-hand side of your screen is his first time putting up a dome. Daryl on the left side has been with me for about 17 years, and Dick on the outside is, I think he's approaching his 30th year. I think this year is the 30th year. A low profile dome, the struts are angling in on the first row. We are above the equator line. If it's a high profile dome, the equator is in the middle of the first row, so the struts are going out and in and out and in around that equator of the dome. In this case, the equator of the dome is actually the floor. So the height of this dome, surprisingly, is going to be about 11 feet. That's it. The 21-foot dome, take half of that's 10.5 feet. The riser wall is boosting it up 2 feet. But realize that this floor down here, my camera angle right here, the floor right here is really the center of the dome. You can see they preset these struts according to what colors are going to be used around the dome. These are relatively small struts. The longest edge length here, I think, is about 4.5 feet. Because it's 21 feet, it's a 3-frequency dome. We've talked about that before on Zoom Talk. We do have instructions in our kits. We do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6-frequency domes. Basically, the longest edge length on any of those sizes, most of them are 8 feet as the longest edge length. But some of them, there's 2 of them, the 29 and the 40, you'll go to a 9-foot as the longest edge length. And this being a 3-frequency dome, there are 4 different sizes of struts. Pounding that pin in on one, they're watching the rotation of this hub. So the hub gets rotated in different directions at different places. Nick was pounding the pin in to the center of the pentagons. And when you hit the center of the pentagon, you turn the hub upside down. So the small hole is up because there's a strut going vertically out of this hub. You got to know those things when you put them on. You study it, you got a construction manual, you study the plans. You want to know where it is. Practice pounding the pin in place. Notice that the smaller the dome, harder it is to, the tighter it is, let's put it that way. This is wood. There's some give to it. When you got a 9-foot long strut, that can twist a little bit, rotate, it can move somewhat, but on the smaller ones, these are select structural southern yellow pine lumber. Extremely dense, extremely hard. You're not going to ruin the hub. You're not going to ruin the sleeves by slamming these pins in place. So on the way around here, those 2 yellow struts that you see over there where they are, those are the part of the pentagons that go around the dome. And there's 5 pentagons around the base and 1 pentagon on the top. This is an icosahedron-based dome. You can look that one up. You can go online and look it up and see what we're talking about. There's another system based on the octahedron. We've done a few like that. Our hub system will work for that. But all of our domes from 1970 on, 69, 70 when we started out, we're doing icosahedron base domes. So that puts 5 pentagons around the base, 1 at the top. You can have more than 1 crew. You could start anywhere you wanted. You could start on each one. If you had 10 sets of 2 people, you could start in 10 different locations. Doesn't matter. It's not, you're not using one to the other. You'll see as we go along, you'll diminish that and you'll be able to work on sections. This being a very small dome, there's not a lot of space inside. The system that they used in putting these struts together on the ground is something we recommend, but a larger dome, my big thing is don't put any struts inside the dome. In this case, this is the first row going up. So we don't have anything here that's piled. The piles are right next to us here. I think when Derek comes back here, wherever he went, on the shot, we are having some internet problems, internet issues. There. We'll take a shot of the pile of struts that we have here. Now, this is because of the way we set this thing up. It's a little ways away, but 15 feet away. If you got an extension coming out from the dome, check your stuff in the extension. You're not going to deal with that till after the dome shell's up. But people go and they stack all the stuff in the middle of the dome because they think, oh, it's open. It isn't. I mean, we're only 10 minutes into this thing. Once the first row is up, we've got scaffolding set up here. The dome is so small, we've got one section of high scaffolding set up. That's going to take no time at all to get to that point. And you use the scaffolding as you're going around, and you can climb on the dome. The dome is self-supporting as we go along. Contrary to dome school, where we talk about when we have a dome school here and we set up a section of a dome, we tell you, oh, don't pound those pins in all the way because our guys are going to come back Monday morning and pull the pins and take the whole structure down. This is a permanent structure. Their pins go in all the way. They got a head on the end of this thing, so they're pounded in all the way. So they sit on this ridge. They're sitting on this ridge of the hub. So you want to pound it flat, pound it tight. It will stick out the other end. Like I said, you don't need a nut on the other end of this. There are 15 sides on this dome. So there's 2 struts on each one of those. There's 30 struts going up. And then there are already 15 struts on the riser wall as the top of the riser wall. And we'll talk about that. So here with the completion of this, you're gonna have 45 struts up in place. When we connect the tops of all of these, that's 15 more. There's 60 struts that you're going to use up in the first row of struts. The total number of struts in the whole dome that we have here are 120. You just did half of the dome struts in the first row.
Say, Dennis, somebody was asking if it's they observed that it's really useful to have a worker inside the dome and one outside kind of guiding. Is that something you would recommend, is to have one person in and one out while you're doing this?
Yeah. You pound the bolts in, you can pound them in from the inside, but it's actually harder, I think, to do that. So we pound all the bolts in from the outside. So in this case, Dick sitting out here is really, it's an easy site because we've got grade right outside here. So another point to be brought up is if you've got a basement on here and you didn't backfill, you couldn't walk around the outside. You'd have this 8-foot deep gully. So your foundation is supposed to be in place. The floor joists are in place. It's locked in together and you backfill. You don't need the dome. The dome's not doing anything with the backfill. So you put this together easier if you've got this thing high enough on the outside. If your grade on the outside is coming up to someplace you can stand on. You notice these guys are leaning around the strut to pound it in place. Sort of an awkward position.
And was this a wood foundation, if I remember correctly, on this dome?
I'm gonna turn the volume up on this.
What was, it was a wood foundation that you put down for this?
Yes, this is a 0.6 treated foundation grade lumber. You can walk around the outside there, but we are really, we'll call it a foundation wall below the struts, or I should say this, the framework that we have for the floor system. We are down 16 inches here. On the other side, we got a 40-inch high wall. So these two yellow struts are the bottom of the pentagon in this location. You need to have 3 struts together before you start pounding the pins in, or you need to know where that hub is going to be orientated and where that strut is coming out at an angle. This does not move. Contrary to what you would think, this doesn't move around. It doesn't go like this. When you pound the pin in place, it locks it in. And if it's wrong, you need to pound the pin out. And that happens sometimes. It's not easy when you're up on the scaffolding and dealing with it that way. So the color coding is this repetitive pattern going around. 2 yellows and the blue. The blue is the struts that go around the pentagon. So the yellows go to the middle of the pentagon.
I'll jump in here with you a little bit, Dennis.
Yeah.
They probably can't hear me good because you're mic, so I'll talk extra loud, but yeah, internet issues are tough during one of these events, but hopefully you guys, it sounds like with your mic though, it's not as loud as you'd imagine on the background, so that's good. Did you talk about how many struts are on that main row versus the total dome?
Yep, I did. They'll end up, this first row is going to be half of the struts.
Okay,
There's 15 and then 30 and 15 more. So that's 60 struts, the total of 160 going in here, minus the 5 struts for the opening.
right.
So when we have an opening, we do not put struts in place. So we leave it open.
Did you get in there?
I am ready to have them stop.
Good, good.
Okay, you'll get that. It'll happen.
So since we're taking a pause, we have a question about the foundation stem wall height on this particular dome is uniform. So what causes some of the non-uniform heights? Does that have to do with the frequency of the dome, or what's that come from?
I'm trying to get some video if it lets me in.
Can you talk in the iPad too?
I can if I unmute, yeah.
Go down to show them the downhill side, but is that the bad reception area?
Yeah, let me see what I can do. It gives me a couple seconds.
Yeah. The top of the riser wall, except for one dome that we do, is always horizontal, flat. So it doesn't go up and down. With the geometry system that we use, which is based on David Krischke's dome spherical trig that he did back in the 1972, 73. All of these riser walls are like a straight line being sliced right through the sphere. So the riser wall part, this strut here, does not go up and down. It's flat. The floor is flat. What's giving us some variety of spaces is the foundation wall. So the foundation wall on the downhill side is just that. The hill goes down, and now you got this deeper wall that you have to deal with to come up to the flat floor. So Derek is roaming around to that side a little bit. You can pull into it. And there, we got some split screen here. So as he's going around, you can see that there's a foundation wall that steps down the hillside. That was about it. we lost the signal.
Yeah.
We learned we don't have very good Wi-Fi reception out here in the backyard. We need a booster antenna somewhere around here. We don't have it.
So now these struts are color coded, but they're color coded. I mean, like for fun, right? These are color coded, but our struts you would purchase in a kit are color coded, so they know where to put them, correct?
Yes, there are stripes of spray paint on the strut, on the outside and on the inside strut. Tessa, do we have a double strut system in the utility room? I think we still do. Brought some of our stuff out here from the dome school, but hey, Derek, show that hub that they just put in the middle. So where I told you that the small hole would be down, our guys kind of have their own technique when they put this thing together. So they don't have the small hole sitting up, but they are aware of where the web sits. Just to simplify this for the owner builder, we're trying to show that. So you can see there's a vertical strut that's going to come up from that, those two yellow struts. So the web can't be vertical. So it just has to be tilted. So if you know that, if you study these angles, you can do just what they did right here on your split screen. As long as that's offset, that vertical strut coming down will work. Like I said, the guys have been doing this for quite a few years. So they come up with their own technique. The pre-building going on here down below on the floor is something that you can do, but be aware that there's an angle change. What? Ah, okay. Our normal house dome is a super wall system. So the super wall system has a 2x8 and a 2x4. And there's plywood gussets that hold those two pieces together. So if you want a 12-inch wall, 15-inch, 18-inch, 21, 24-inch wall, whatever you want, we set that up pre-built for you. This dome that is on the split screen, the Bear Creek dome, this is an 18-inch wall system. So we got 16 inches of fiberglass, 2-inch ventilated airspace. That gives us the 18 inches. This dome is strictly a 2x8 dome. It's not insulated. It's going to have screen on the outside, except for a portion of this, the triangles on the very top and the middle, and going out to this opening that'll have the solid plywood on it, plywood triangles, and then we're going to shingle the top of that. we're putting on the rain key aluminum shakes. But the screen stays on all year round. The dome that we had over in our office complex had the split screen is showing you how thick the struts are. I'm looking at the screen here. So there's an 18-inch wall. Where the skylights are, we don't want an 18-inch wall. There's no reason to have that. So I think we just lost a signal. There we go. We're back, or at least back on my screen. So this is a very convenient height and size of triangle. They can walk around. So the pattern at this level going around is yellow, yellow, black, yellow, yellow, black, yellow, yellow, black. The one they're putting in right now over there. So Daryl's slammed that one in, and Dick is putting some pressure on that strut because when you put the sleeve into that hub, it looks like it's too long. So what you do is you push the hub in. And what you're doing is you're decreasing the diameter of the dome when you do that. So the distance between those 2 points is less. And like I said, what we're dealing with here, and this is real-time video, what we're coming up with. What he needs is some extra effort in here. The struts are so small, it's really tight. So it's causing some issue on this particular strut. It needs to be pulled together. So they get a strap tie. And you want to pull that thing together. Lost your signal, Derek. Sure.
So Dennis, do you think this same type of dome, like what you're doing here with the screen dome, could some sort of glass type thing be put in and maybe enclose a pool? Could something like that be used for, I guess, a pool?
Yeah, we've got several domes that have a pool in them, but the ones that we've done are more year-round. So they've got skylights in them, true, our natural Spaces dome skylights, along with solid panels. So we're dealing with that. From a pool dome standpoint, you got humidity control inside that you want to be aware of. So you want a ventilation system. You want to go into the installation of a ventilation system at a pool dome. Talk about the pool humidity control. That's the question. Can this be turned into a pool cover?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Hey, Derek, you want to move over? You're blocking the guys doing the. There we go.
Well, you got the mic, so really most of us can't hear but you, so you have to do the phone and talking. I should have brought the second one, I guess.
You should have.
I know, see, here's what we're seeing right now. It's kind of freezing up a little bit.
Yep. So we're dealing with different kinds of domes. This is a different kind of a sleeve that we have. Lit up in the light so you can see this difference between the two. So if you're in an earthquake zone, we're up here, this is the one you want to do right here. So we provide this, which is our super lock system, our ultra lock system, I should say. We call it an ultra lock. So the bolt holes are further back from the end of the lumber. They're asymmetrical instead of the ones being here symmetrical. And this gives us about a 30, actually 1/3 increase in the holding capacity of this sleeve on the strut. This normally would take about a 15,000 pound pull test. This one goes to the 20,000 pound pull test.
So then would you use the ultra lock in a hurricane zone? Is that what's recommended?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We've got one of our domes down on the coast in New Orleans, southeast of New Orleans. We just got a picture back from Max down there. And his big thing was he's doing remodeling. He showed me some areas that he wanted some more tongue and groove paneling from his dome that he built, what was it, in the 90s. Nothing wrong with the dome. The dome is sitting up on a 20-foot high platform. So he had to, he vacated. It was a mandatory evacuation, so he couldn't be there. He didn't have any cameras set up, but he went back into the dome. No problems on the outside. It's an elastomeric dome system on the outside, so there are no shingles to deal with. But absolutely no problems with the dome, skylights, anything. He's just, well, like I said, it's southeast of New Orleans on the coast, on the marshland coast. So his dome does have the ultralock connectors. We've got a dome further west from New Orleans. We haven't talked to him. So we're going to deal with, right. We try to communicate with some of our domes. There's also one up triple dome complex in north of Lake Pontchartrain. So we've never had any problems. The problem we had was the Beach Dome 1 in North Carolina. And the problem was the pilings. We did code. We went down 5 to 8 feet for the pilings. That was code. And that, I think, might still be code. And it moved the dome 80 feet because the pilings gave way, ripped off the connection to the main floor, and moved the dome intact across the street. And it laid half in the street and half in the neighbor's property across the street. So we disassembled parts of the dome, fought with the city, trying to show them that less than 50% of the dome was damaged. And they just wanted this whole thing, the whole big section of the coast there rebuilt. And not, I don't know, it's politics involved in there maybe, but anyway, we rebuilt on another part of the island, on Topsail Island, on the northern part. And in '98 built a dome that was, I guess I can say it now, 52 feet high above the grade. So we're dealing with that dome being there from '98, going through hurricane after hurricane. There were some shingles on one side that were ripped up in various storms. You just replace the shingles. They didn't, the replacement shingles on it weren't the highest quality. And that was true on the dome down in Texas.
I want to explain about the size of the dome.
Sure. Tessa's telling me to explain the size of the dome here. The 20-foot diameter dome and a low profile that we're dealing here
That's my one.
is starting to curve in quite fast. This is a screen porch dome for us. We want to sit out here and have dinner and have, entertain and deal with it as a party dome too, right? So at this point, they can stand on the struts, stand on the riser walls or the struts right now. The opening that I said was the entry door is a pentagon at this level. So this is the opening in the dome. We're not putting any struts in this opening. We're going across the dome. So you want to put the bottom pins in, but you have to have the 3 triangles together to do those. Now you can put the top hub in place. There are times when you can pre-assemble some of those struts together on the top part that they're working on. So when you set it up there, they fit in place. But you'd have to have the strut below it as part of the 3 triangles that you're putting together. So you can do some of this pre-assembly on the floor. Notice we have the scaffolding in here. We just moved it over to the side. On the small dome, it's very typical. This is like the top of a big dome. You're moving around. If you have stuff in the middle of that dome, it's in the way. So all the struts that were there were used on that first row. So now they have some struts staged around here so they know, okay, those are ready to go up over there. That's where your people who don't want to go up in the scaffolding, that's the work that they can do. There's the pentagon. 5 yellow struts form the pentagon. That's what they just completed. Blue struts go around the pentagon. So down here and the one closer to you, you can see the bottom of that pentagon. The blue struts are going around. There are 2 more blue struts going around, 1 more yellow strut going up. Again, it's the diagram that we've got. There's a top view. There's a top view, and it's color coded. You need to mark off the struts that you've already done. So you need somebody down here. The old trick could probably learn about this. We've had many domes where you don't really want the kids up on the scaffolding. But the one we had up northern Minnesota that we did, I was there. Basically, we had 3 scaffolding sections staged, and it was a 36-foot high profile dome. The entire town, population of 50, was probably there. So we had a lot of stuff going up at the same time. So there was a young kid here, I think he was about 12, watching what I was doing, looking at the pattern that's going up. And I would point it out to him. Well, they're right here in this part of the diagram, and they're going to, next one is over here. You can see what that is. He caught on. He was good in the math, the geometry in his head. So basically, I gave him an extra sheet, and I said, here, you take this, go over there, and you tell them what struts go next. When you're up on the scaffolding, you're disorientated. And you're seeing these colors, but you don't see the pattern. Even when you got the sheet up there that tells you this is the pattern, it's very hard to see that. So he did that very, very easily, telling him what was next. His dad got a greater appreciation of his 12-year-old telling him what to do, because he didn't realize that he was actually guiding him, and his father was up on the scaffolding. So it's something you have to grasp 3-dimensionally. You can look at plans. This is the side view, top view. See where you're going. It's really should be fairly easy as you check things off going around the dome. So these struts just stand up there. They're self-supporting all the way up the dome. We don't come back and tighten any bolts. That's not our system. There's another company, that's what you have to do. You got to go back and tighten all the bolts. The pin is locking these pieces together permanently. Now this is an outside dome. We're using stainless steel pins. So if you did have, and we've got a few domes that are somewhere we got a 7, well, not somewhere, but it's a 72-foot diameter dome, and it's being used as an enclosure to building a house inside of it. The greenhouse is really what it is. So we can do 75-foot diameter domes without a problem. The longest edge length is 8 feet. It's the same pattern as this. It's got 5 pentagons around and 1 pentagon on the top of the dome. It's just got more struts between the pentagons. And I think that one has either 12, well, we modified the base on that, I think. So there's 15 different struts. And they get 2 stripes or 3 stripes of color. It's color coded. If you're colorblind, we'll put a letter on it. It's A for amber, B is blue, C is crimson, D is dark. So it's this whole system that we have.
And Dennis, does the construction manual give the position of the hubs for every section? Does it tell you the details?
Yeah, what it is this. Admittedly, our guys know the system better. The small hole is down on all of them except in the middle of the pentagon. And then when you get to the corners of the pentagon, this one right here, one over here, those are the corners of the pentagon. Put those yellow and the blue struts in the small hole. So it angles it off a little bit. But if you can fit the 2 struts into the small hole, then the other struts are going to fit. Always look at where the other struts are coming off in this rotation of this hub. And it's really very simple. And yes, it is explained in there. It's also a situation where when you get your dome delivered from us, there's a packing list. On the cover of the packing list is my cell phone number, Tessa's cell phone number, Derek's cell phone number, Nancy's cell phone number, and I think even Debbie's cell phone number. We tell you, do not leave a message on any cell phone. You're trying to find an answer to something, call down the list. If I don't answer my cell phone, somebody knows where I am, or you'll get Derek, or you'll get Nancy. There's enough of us that know what that answer is going to be, depending on what your question is. And they know if I'm not answering my phone, they know where I am. They'll find me, or they'll tell you I'm not available, but I'll get an answer to your question. We've talked about having a service where either Derek or I is available during your dome raising by FaceTime or Zoom, set up a Zoom meeting like we are right now. So it's all in what you feel you need to have. We sent a dome out to California near north of Sacramento, and it's a contracting crew that put up. It's basically the roof of the living room of a $2 million house, $2 million plus house. Now in California, that's probably not a very big house, but in this case, it is. We did all the color coding here. It was highly customized because it had to fit around a base. It was the top of this dome that you see here. Probably it's a 3-frequency dome, and we modified a base row to fit what they had down below. They had some openings, special openings going into it. We labeled everything. We showed them how the hub was. We sent photographs, a whole slew of photographs, because we pre-assembled their dome because of the high customization. We pre-assembled the dome here, took it apart, shipped it out. Basically, we said, okay, well, we'll wait till you put it up and we'll talk to you when you're putting it up. We didn't hear from them. Next thing we know, we see the picture, the dome is up. In fact, I just talked to them just the other day. They've got a 3-story high, because this is a 3-story living room space with the dome on top of it. They have a 3-story high steel spiral stair. So they built a section of the dome and left the section where the spiral stair goes in because it's being built separately and not put in until the dome is in. But that section of the dome was left open. Huge section. It's about probably 1/5 of the dome was left out of it. It's still self-supporting. It's strong. They can walk on it. And they're going to take this 3-story high spiral and stair with a crane and lift it down in the opening and then finish the struts in that section and put the panels on them. It's supposed to happen in the next week or two. A lot of unusual domes that we do. We don't show a lot of them online because we're going to deal with people going, oh, I want that, I like that, or do this for me. And you don't understand why we did what we did. The dome up in Toronto, we've got a 17-foot diameter dome. We sliced it at an angle this way to form a canopy over the door. It's a meditation chamber in the dome that you go from one dome to the other. Look at all these projects and have an interesting time working on them and designing them. So it's fun. There you can see in the back, they've completed the blue struts around the pentagons. So they're coming over to this pentagon here. There's 2 red struts. And we talk about these as triangles. Those are the C struts. C is for crimson. There's 2 C struts. So there's 3 different kinds of panels in this dome. There's a red, red, black, which would be a CCD as a dog. There's a yellow over there. You can see the yellow, yellow, blue. So it's amber, amber, blue, AAB. And then you have the C and the C, crimson, crimson, blue, as a CCB. So it's AAB, CCB, CCD. 3 different triangles you have in a 3-frequency dome, whether it's 30, 33, 36, 38, 40, all those sizes of domes are 3-frequency domes. But all of the domes, based on the icosahedron, have 5 of these pentagons around the base or around the dome. If it's a high profile, that pentagon is 1 row up. You just have more struts in between the pentagons as you change from the 3-frequency to the 4-frequency. And the reason we do that is we want to cut down the strut length, keep the strut length small enough so you can handle it. As I mentioned, all of our domes, the longest edge length is 9 feet long, and that's only on a 29 or a 40. All the rest of them, 8 feet is the longest edge length. So really the small ones, like 16, 18, 20, 26, 29, those are, well, the 29 is 8 feet, but the 26 is 8 feet long. 29 is 9 feet long. Then you go to a 30-foot 3-frequency dome. So the 30-foot through 40-foot is 3-frequency. Then our 42 through 51-foot diameter is a 4-frequency. Then the 50, well, we do 54, 56 and 60 are 5-frequency. And there we modified the base on the 5-frequency dome because it's not a flat base normally, but we did the geometry on that ourselves and create a flat plane on that. 5-frequency, go to a 6-frequency dome, and that's our 74-foot diameter dome that we do. We've done a couple of smaller ones in that, but generally we use the 72 or 74. And that one has a flat base. All of the even frequencies have this equator line, and it's a flat base. This is above the equator line And the strut is not horizontal. This bottom strut, the top of this riser wall. You want to go into that, Derek, if you can, in the split screen? Show the angle of that. It's, you froze up there, Derek. There it is. So it's really the top of that riser wall is at an 11-degree angle. That's the difference in a 3-frequency, 5-frequency dome. The bottom is not laying flat, the strut's not laying flat. But it's also a point that I'll show you here. The top of the riser wall is a strut. It's part of our system. The vertical on this end of this riser wall has our hub and sleeve system going into it. We don't want to waste lumber. We've already conserved it because we use 3/4 plywood and do not require bracing in the panels. So the top of this riser wall being one strut going all the way around, and the circumference of this 21-foot diameter is 3 times 21. So it's 63 feet around. So if we were to build a riser wall and put a flat plate on it, like you would normally frame a vertical wall with a plate on top, there's 63 feet of lumber. And then it's angled at 11 degrees. So we can name names here. Timberline gives you a beveled plate to fit on top of that riser wall, which has a flat line on it. It's cut from a 4x Doug fir. Another 63 feet of lumber going around. Then you get their strut to put on top of that. So you've just, in our case, I'll say it, you just wasted 126 feet of lumber. You don't need it. This is the structure of the riser wall. So it's those kind of things that we look at in our dome system. All this framing lumber that you see here is FSC certified. This is the Forest Stewardship Council. They come from managed forests. We just got a shipment from them recently. It is not in short supply. We have readily available suppliers. We buy direct from the mills. We have plywood. Yeah, it was in short supply and ungodly expensive back in May, June. It's dropped down drastically. It was, we have a big box stores here in the Midwest called Menards. And their retail price on that 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood, which is what we use on the outside of the dome, was $92 a sheet, when it normally was $30 to $33 a sheet. It's finally come back down. Other things have gone up. I mean, there's a lot of things that have risen in prices, 2x4s, 2x6s, even the 2x8 lumber that we bought. Yes, that went up. Aluminum prices went up, so the hub is more. Steel prices have fluctuated all over the place. So this sleeve that we have, that's gone up in price. So yes, we adjusted our prices, but now we're back down to, I'll call it normal situation. It's still higher than a year and a half ago. And it probably should have been, because lumber prices were level for, not level, but really slow increases for a lot of years. And normally you'd have to take care of higher wages, other costs that enter into it. So the increase in lumber didn't occur, and it occurred all at one time. But last year, last December, or even last year through June, was something that I've talked to a lot of people. I've been doing this for 50 years. I've talked to people that are in the lumber industry for 40, 50 years. They've never seen anything like it. Reasons for it, a lot of things. The mills closed during the pandemic. That started it. Maybe not started it, but that exacerbated the situation. Now we're dealing sort of with normal situations. However, we're still seeing shortages. of little parts, little pieces. So it's still affecting a lot of things.
So given all that, Dennis, one of our questions is from start to finish, from ordering, let's see, from ordering a kit till they get it, how long does that take generally right now?
Right now, I tell you 6 to 8 weeks. However, if you want to order Velux skylights, which is part of our system for operable skylights, we just found out that Velux had a 4-week lead time on some of their stuff, their flashing systems, because aluminum has gone up or in short supply or something. So those kind of things might affect it. But normally we're going to talk, it depends on what size of dome. You want this dome right here? I'll tell you 3 weeks. Well, we're busy. I shouldn't just throw out 3 weeks. We're busy, but what is the delivery time that you want on your dome? That's what we look at. You want this dome next year? We'll work on it over the winter. We are taking orders already for 2022. Are we filled up in 2021? A qualified yes, but it really depends on the project and what is involved in that. We're doing a dome now that the customer just contacted us a short while ago, but it's a small dome, very easy dome. We have the material on hand. We have struts, sleeves, bolts, nuts, plywood, strut lumber. So these kind of things, there's no problem. We've got an inventory here. So delivery times are going to be based on your project. Larger dumps will take us that 5-week, 6-week, 7-week lead time to pull all these components together and get them through our production schedule.
So Dennis, on these struts for this dome, are they all the same size? Or if they're not, can you point out which ones are which lengths and give us some examples?
Sure, it's A, B, C, D. A is the shortest strut. So here's the A strut. Here's the B strut. I'll set them on the ground like this. You can see the difference between the two. The C strut would be here. The D strut would be here. So those are the 4 different lengths. And it's significant. I mean, you can see the difference between these two. That's at least a 7-inch, 8-inch difference between the A and the B. Now, between the B and the C, it's probably 6 inches. Same with the to the black strut. I'm just looking at it down here on the ground. It's about 4 inches difference from the red to the black, and about a 6-inch between the red to the blue. The 4-frequency dome, we have 6 different sizes of struts. In the 5-frequency dome, I know there's 12 different sizes of struts.
Now, do you ever label the hubs to match the struts? Or is it too variable for that?
The hubs are all the same. So this hub is the same as, it's all the same. It's one hub that we have. And you say label them, actually for this California dome with this severe modification that we did to match their 3 big extensions, we had to go over their extensions. We did actually on the hubs that we had, we labeled them that has as to where it went on the special parts of it. Otherwise, no, normally we don't, there's no reason to label the struts. It's just to tell you the small hole goes down, or you put 2 struts into the small hole to start with.
So I have a question because I want to make sure I'm telling people the right thing. We're looking at a 21-foot diameter 3-frequency screen dome right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not lying. Okay, good.
Low profile. We say low profile, we say high profile, we say mid profile. The low profile is above the equator of the dome. So this is the equator down here on the floor. You can't, on an odd numbered frequency, 1, 3, 5, 7, you can't cut it at the equator line and get a half dome. So this is a 4/9 dome. Yeah, I know people say, well, it's really a 3/8 dome. No, this has been going on since Dome Book 1, Dome Book 2, where they talk about a 3/8 and a 5/8 dome. You get to the correction that was done by Dave Kirschke, who was a math teacher. And he showed that we could get this flat horizontal line on this level. And then looked at this dome. Here's the first row right here. Here's the second row right here. We're dealing with the third row going up at this point. They're about to start the horizontal kind of row on this third row. And the very top is the Pentagon. That's the fourth row. So we're building 4/9 of the rows. So these are the 4. This will be a 5th one going down to here and around to the South Pole. You'll have 9 rows of struts. And we're building 4 of them here. So it's a 4/9 dome. If we went down one more row of triangles, that I'm putting down below the floor, this would then be a 5/9 dome, where we build 5 of those rows. Have we done a 6/9? Yeah. The domes that we've had in a 4 frequency, there's 12 rows from the North Pole to the South Pole. So you get a half dome because you have a 6/12 dome. And a 6/12 dome is 1/2. 4/9, 5/9. Can you get a dome at the equator? You could if you cut through the middle of this row of struts down here in this level. Why would you do that? So you either build a low or you build a high on a 3 frequency. If you, for some reason, wanted a half dome and it had to be a certain diameter, and we've got somebody right now that they want a 40-foot diameter dome, but they want a half dome. So we go to a 4 frequency dome and bring that size down, because normally, like I said, it's a 42 through a 51 foot for a 4 frequency. So we're going to build a 40-foot 4 frequency dome. It's a half dome. That's what they want. Fine. Is it more material, less material? Is it a waste of material? No. We use lumber. We get, 8s, 10s, 12s, 14, 16 foot long lumber. So there's not a waste of material. We look at that and we get these sections, the strut sections cut a certain way. 2 struts out of a 16-footer or 2 struts out of a 14, or maybe we got a drop from the 14 and we use it on a different size dome. We get very, very little waste. Same with the plywood. For some reason, I don't have the super wall strut out here. We thought we had one. Things we forget. We take this scrap plywood that we have from cutting triangles out of 4x8 sheets of plywood, and we cut those into 8-inch wide gussets, we call them. So they're 8-inch wide by whatever width we need to do this 2x8 and 2x4 connection between the two. So we need a longer gusset on a 15-inch, longer one on an 18, longer one on a 21-inch. But this is where our scrap plywood goes into. We have an outside wood-fired boiler that heats our office, my old dome, our old dome that we lived in. It's a 46-foot diameter. Also, it's our guest dome. That's a 30-foot diameter dome. along with both shops. And the shop is a 40-foot dome and a 45-foot diameter dome. So all 5 of those domes, totaling 10,000 square feet when you count the lower levels on all of them and the space that we have, are heated from an outside wood-fired boiler. It's a commercial boiler, has 1,000 gallons of, no, it's got more than that. I think it's got 2,000 gallons of water that it's heating up, and it flows 24/7. And that goes through an A coil in a regular furnace and blows air across that coil and heats those domes during the winter. We need scrap lumber. We don't have enough scrap lumber to heat them. We have downed trees. We just had a bunch of trees in here. In fact, if I turn this around or turn this over, I'll change the view a little bit. It's a static view we have. There's some trees down the hillside here that we had to cut. They were dead. They're dead oak trees. So we use that to burn. But I'm heating this 10,000 square feet.
So we have a question on a 3-frequency high-profile dome. Would you use the hexagon for the door opening if you have a riser wall instead of the pentagon?
What we do, and here's a good case right here. What we do normally, and it's the size of the triangle that we're dealing with. If we tried to put a door into this triangle right here, the struts are in the way. There's not a high enough door you can fit. This is a little hobbit door you could fit in there maybe. What we do is we take out this red strut and this red strut and these 2 red struts, and we actually create this opening right here to get a door opening going into a normal size dome that we do. In this case, we took out the pentagon and 1 strut over here. Now, we have an issue on both sides of this. This is a screen porch dome. There's really no pressure that we're dealing with. So we're going to have this structure of this corner. We took out the ring here. We took out the belt. Okay, take your belt off. What happens? Your stomach comes out. This wants to go out. It's got a downward pressure pushing this point out. We should be bracing this wall, and we will. We'll provide a brace in here, but there's no pressure. We have some snow load from the panels that we're going to have on the top of the dome, but otherwise there's no pressure in this dome. So we don't worry about the screen porch. In a normal dome, yeah, we worry about it. We want a wing wall coming out, whatever the height of the riser wall. We want it coming out 2 feet for a 2-foot high riser wall. That stops this point from going out and down from the pressure of the dome on the top because we opened it up. But this is the normal opening in our domes right here. Here's a horizontal strut. This is the opening. We want it that wide. Now we can fit a door into it, a double door. Instead of trying to take 1 triangle and make a door that's going to fit in there, you don't have it. It doesn't work until you get into a very large panel dome. And even then, you still need these wing walls coming out to support these 2 corners on a normal dome.
So I think you mentioned this, Dennis, but I'm just going to ask because somebody asked the question, and
Sure.
there's two questions that kind of go together. So are the metal sleeves all attached to the same angle in the A, B, C, and D struts? And then someone was asking for a close-up of where the 2 struts go into the same hole on the hub. So I don't know if Derek can get a close-up of the hub, but if I remember correctly, you said that not everything goes in at the same angle, correct?
Correct. Can you go into the hub there and show? That is not, there's different angles going around there. The sleeve, each sleeve, the yellow to the black, there's the yellow, blue, red, and black all together that you see there. the angle of the sleeve attachment to the strut is different for each color. Now, there's only 3 degrees difference. It varies from 9 degrees to 12 degrees between those 3 different strut panels, or 4 different strut sizes. And it's very small, but if you're buying the connection hardware system from us and you're building your own struts, you're cutting your own struts and drilling your own holes, we give you templates, 4 different templates, plus 1 for the riser wall for the attachment of those sleeves. And they will vary, like I said, by 1 degree or 1.5 degrees between each one. The center of the pentagon, those are all yellow struts. So all the angles in there on those sleeves are the same. Sleeve is the same on the yellow, all the yellow struts. Each end of that yellow strut has a sleeve that's the same angle. This is part of the spherical trigonometry that we dealt with back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, we appreciate the questions coming in. We kind of forget what we don't know, what we don't know that you don't know. That's really what it is. And it really is nice to have the questions and get a better explanation in the language that you can understand. And it sometimes takes a question being asked in your words. So that's what we want to do.
Well, we do have a couple, so whenever you're ready,
I'm ready. It's break time.
It's break time. All right. Well, so an early question that I wanted to get to is your super lock system the same one? Is it the same that's used on the double wall system? So is the super lock used on both single and double?
So the reality is this, the 2x8 select, now I gotta say this too. This dome is being made with 2x6 struts because we don't have the snow load. It's a screen porch dome. There was really no reason to do that, but this is Southern yellow pine lumber, and that's what we use. Southern yellow pine is just a stronger lumber, better green. It's, holds a nail better. So normally we do a 2x8 and our sleeves attached to the 2x8. All that 2x4 is doing on the double strut that we do is holding insulation in an interior panel. That's it. That's the only purpose for that extra strut, to get a thicker wall than 7¼ inches. We don't have a reason to have 7¼ inches of insulation, except if you're, well, even in Florida, we want to see the southern coast, we want to see a higher R value on that wall. How do you get it? We've gotten into this discussion on our Zoom talks several times here, talking about the new regulations that are now coming out there. And it's really R60 for most of the country, the colder part of the country. But there's no reason that we need a sleeve, any kind of hardware on that inner 2x4 strut. It's just sitting there. It's not connected. There's a space between it. There's no reason that you need it to be connecting it. Even if you did, it would not contribute to the structural strength of the dome. The 2x8 is what we use as our minimum. Even on a smaller dome that's a house dome, 29, even we need, I think we made those struts 2x8 in the camper domes that we did for the state of Michigan up in northern Michigan. They were 18-foot diameter domes, and we used the 2x8. So that's the structural part of it. As I said, the dome is rigid on its way up. It's self-supporting on its way up, and it's self-supporting of your weight being put on here. Nothing's moving. This dome doesn't wiggle. What wiggles is the scaffolding. That's what moves, that shakes. So our guys walk around on the outside of the dome, feel a lot more comfortable. Are you putting pressure on this dome? You are. There's some weight being pushed in on it, but it's self-supporting, interlocking, and it should not affect, it doesn't really affect this dome as you put it up.
What would you say is the highest riser wall that could be used on a dome like this?
Well, if you go beyond 4 feet, which is our sort of a standard that we have, is it 45 inches or 48 inches? That's the highest we like to see it, but we have many domes at 8-foot high riser walls. You're losing efficiency. You're losing the efficiency that we have because of the triangle without any struts in between. You're building an 8-foot high riser wall with studs that, well, we suggest 24 inches on center with the new advanced framing techniques. But you have thermal loss unless you go to the double wall system, which you can do an 8-foot high riser wall and do a 11¼ inch top plate, and your wall's 11¼ inches thick, shove in 12 inches of insulation, and you have 2 2x4 studs apart. So you don't touch, they don't touch. It's not 1 2x12 that you're using, which would be a really waste of a good tree to do a stud with the 2x12s. So you want to do a 2x4 and a 2x4. They can find a lower grade tree to do that. It's still going to be construction grade material. And that's going to be 12 inches thick, usually what we do. And we're doing 15 or 18 inches up here. We get down to a riser wall that's 8 foot high. We've done them the same height as the riser wall, the same thickness, I should say, if you did a high 8 foot high riser wall. You want to do a 6 foot high riser wall, 7 foot high riser wall. It's a little weird. What is that going to do to you? You can't put a door in there. The door is 6 foot 10 inches, rough opening is 6 foot 10 inches. So do you need a header over the door? Depends on what you're doing around that. Normally you wouldn't, because the dome is going to span across the opening and you wouldn't need a header. So you could do 7 foot, right, or 7'4" is what I would say, to get some kind of nailing above that door. So what's your reason for it? You're trying to save something? This dome framing is more efficient than building conventional framing on an extension. We talk to people who've got 5 extensions going around the dome, and they're going to go, well, I'm going to want 8 foot on this one and I'll 12 foot on this one. And it's like, why? Build a bigger dome, and you're more efficient structurally, you're more efficient energy-wise with that dome. Get rid of 1 or 2 extensions. Yeah, you might have an extension coming out for a door, double door system and windows, or an entry door, or a living room area or something that you created, or a connecting link to the garage. A variety of reasons to do it. But to have a dome and then have 5 extensions because, oh, I want a bigger bedroom, I want a bigger kitchen, I want a bigger this. Build a bigger dome. It's going to be more efficient all the way around.
On that note, would you also, does the geometry of the dome, or this same idea of build a bigger dome, have less extensions, include placement of doors? So the question is, do you recommend having an extension for your door depending on the size of the dome or the geometry of the dome, or is it just sort of personal preference with extension, not extension, for where your interior or your exterior doors are?
We always deal with a so-called extension for a doorway. Now, it may not be an extension. It may just be a straight line that goes from this point over to this, pointing over here and watching my screen, to this point right here. If it goes from there back to here as a straight line, it's really not going out any, it's just a straight line across. You need a canopy over that. You've got to have a canopy. At minimum 2.5 feet. We like to see 3 feet. If it's a door, we like to see 4 feet. I view a door without a canopy as like your guest comes up to go into the door and they're knocking at the door and it's raining out and they're getting drenched. That's what it's there for. Or you come up and got to get your keys out. You got a bag of groceries. You just came back from Costco and you got this boxes and all, you know, it's those kind of things where coming up to the door, you got to get your key out and open the door. You want an overhang. Bear Creek Dome, we've got an 8-foot overhang going off of the extension, and it's a side extension, or I should say a side door onto the extension. So we're going to design that door system so it works for you physically. We also don't like steps coming into a door. Bear Creek Dome, there's no steps. This is flush on the outside, right up to the threshold of the door. And guess what? That threshold is going to be 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 high. Recess it. We recess it into the concrete. We put a 2x sleeper along there and depressed where the door was by 1.5 inches. Now our threshold still has a little bump on it, but you come in, you can roll right across that. And you can roll an emergency journey from a ambulance coming into the house, as we've had here once or twice for a variety of reasons. And we're dealing with this from the standpoint of just handicap accessibility. Did you break a leg? Did you sprain your ankle? Did you break your, ankle or something that's going to require you to be on crutches? And not saying that it's you're in a wheelchair, but that could put you in a wheelchair. I got some friends right now that said basically you've got to be off this leg because they broke their ankle for 6 weeks. So why do you have the steps? Is there a reason? Shouldn't be. We've solved various issues on various domes, including our office dome, which basically has 2 feet up from there. What are you saying? I'm being prompted by someone else here. The dome is doing very well. It's going up pretty fast, isn't it? So did I answer that last question? I got sidetracked on a lot of things.
Yep, that was it. The follow-up question is, what about a wraparound porch for steps? Has that been done on a dome?
Yes, we do that a lot of times. It's going to come off of the line of the struts. Various domes, we've taken the next horizontal row of struts, and I should say the next horizontal row of struts, and did an attachment all the way around for the roof. There's a way of framing that roof into the dome, adding a little bracing behind the plywood depending on where it's hitting. That's a standard detail we have. It's a standard detail as part of the detail kits that we have. We have a lot of customization that we do, but the reality is we have lots of details that we've drawn, and we don't do them over and over. We say, here's the detail right here. We've done it 10 times, 50 times, so we can provide that detail. So putting a porch all the way around it, there are reasons for it. So I didn't catch it soon enough. I would have had them start on the other side of the dome so they finish up on this side. But that's fine. You're seeing what it is. What are we at? 1.5 hours now? Well, I think we are. Started at about 22:11. So the blue strut, get my hand up here so you can see. The blue strut right here, this is the top pentagon edge. So this is 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. And the top pentagon that's on top of this will be the fourth row. So they've Derek, can you talk about on there? You're talk about what you're showing them there inside.
It's gonna be noisy on this one because I don't have a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, the strap.
Okay, I'll on and talk for this. So this has real short struts. And so it's a little bit more difficult to put together than a dome with longer struts. So in this case, you're gonna pull this together a little bit using a strap. This way to do it. Sometimes this happens at the top of the dome, depending on the foundation, if something's not exactly where it's supposed to be. Dome is kind of perfect, so anything that's not, to compensate a little bit. So in this case with the strap, I don't know if I can see it in the video, but it kind of pulls the dome down a little bit and forms it back into a perfect circle if it's a little bit out of whack. I'm gonna mute it, Dennis, because it's gonna get loud.
No, he's so there you saw adding the strap just to pull it in slightly. You keep the strap up on top with you and with the scaffolding going around. But otherwise, it's not, I'm backing up thinking about yesterday, and we didn't actually, I was going to take the transit to see how level the floor was. We used the transit in setting up the riser walls. It is very accurate, but there may be a part where it's a ½ inch down, ¼ inch down. I'll probably want to do this on Monday. We'll take a look at what the levelness is of that platform. It's critical. You want to know that. Deeper concrete people sometimes say, well, what do you need? You know, I say, well, it's got to be this number. Why would you ask anything else? Well, you know, it's hard to get that. Well, no, it isn't. You got to build your forms right. You got to build your foundation right. So get it accurate. You want to know this before you start the dome, and that will pinpoint areas where you may have some issues. The dome is a mathematically pure and unmoving shape. So you're going to have this dome right here. If there was one side of the floor that was lower, it would not go down to that if you tied the whole dome together. And if they're having problems up here, it may be because this one is too low. You can see the strut. You can see what happens. If this strut is low, if this point is low right here, it affects this one and that one and the one above it. So it might react on the top of the dome. However, that's kind of rare. This, again, the small dome with the small struts is, we've seen it before doing the 17-foot dome, the 18-foot dome. So it just takes some pushing and pulling, which you can't twist the strut. They're too, the Southern Yellow Pine lumber is not really a flexible lumber.
Is it obvious which way, where you need to put the strap or which way you need to pull once you're up there? Or is it something you need to continually check?
No, it's obvious where the hub is just not coming together. Or I should say the strut is not coming into that hub. It needs a pull together by half an inch or something, and you can't pull it, you don't have the pressure, you're on the dome pushing it in, and you're only, 150, 200 pounds of pressure that you've got for your own body weight up there. Oftentimes we'll say, take a rope. If you have to pull something in, take a rope, tie it around, and have, the person down below put 3 people on that rope and pull this thing down. It's all you need to pull this thing in. When you go in, it gets closer together. But the strap up on top like they are, they're hitched it to the sleeve. You see that? And cranked it down and pulled that together.
So how accurate does the foundation need to be for a dome? Does it need to be within a 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch?
You'll probably scare away all of the concrete guys if you say 1/16 of an inch. So you want that to be as accurate as they can get it. You may have a 1/4 inch drop, 3/8. So when you get into the 1/2 inch to more than that, you shouldn't tie the riser wall down. The guys are really comfortable from the standpoint of putting up this foundation wall when they went around we had 2 different transits here. We had a laser transit, which gives you the red light going around. Plus we had our old-fashioned builder's transit. And we were able to level this sufficiently enough that we said, okay, let's put these riser walls on and nail them down here. Normally the instructor is going to say to you, don't nail this riser wall down to your floor. Don't put bolts in here down to your concrete until your dome is up. Your framework is up. Now that dome has found its natural position of the way it was made. I'm not going to say that you couldn't make a mistake if you're cutting your own struts and doing your own panels. We just haven't seen that in the domes that we've done. In the problem areas that we've seen, it's really on that foundation wall or that floor deck. That's where we've seen the foundation. And we've had to recalculate one of the domes. We're talking one out of hundreds and hundreds of domes where it was such a drastic error on the person that built the wall. And it wasn't a masonry guy, it was a homeowner. Well, I can do this, I can stack block. Well, yeah, it looks like, an amateur stacked it. So it was off 1.5 inches on one side and out of round. So instead of saying start over, we said, well, we'll recalculate the first row of struts, which we did. And he had to redo that first row to match the foundation that he had built. So use the strengths that you have. If you know carpentry, stay with carpentry. If you know how to do concrete and you've been doing it, or your friends or your relatives are coming to help and that's what they do, fine. But don't take sloppiness, don't take a reason that they go, oh, don't worry about it, we never really make it square. You always hear about houses that are 1 inch out of square. It shouldn't be. If you've got a square, if you've got a rectangle, measure the hypotenuse this way and the hypotenuse that way. That should be the same number. If it isn't, it's not square. You don't have 90-degree corners. And they don't do a lot of that sometimes, but they should. In our case, there's a center point to this outside edge, and the center point to this outside edge should be the same. We give you measurements to the 1/16 of an inch. Will you get it that close? Be nice if you could. So again, we're here to talk to you if you find a problem or if there's a question on a contractor.
Are the bigger domes more forgiving if the struts are off, or do you need to shim anything with the domes?
It's rare. No, there's no real problems with the dome going up. Like I said, you just build the dome framework up. And if you were off in a foundation, you can shim it. There's many situations where people are going up and they're just amazed. They get to the top and it's the top pentagon and they go, this isn't going to fit, or whatever. They just don't realize that all of the math of the dome is used here. Now you get to the top, if it all goes together, the last one's just going to fit right into place. In fact, it might be tight enough that you have to kind of work with that and watch that so you get them in to this hub. I'll see how they do because they've got their own techniques for doing the top pentagon. But it really, yeah, this is a small dome. But realize a low profile, say 3 frequency, 40-foot diameter dome, it's got the same number of pieces to put up. So whether the piece is 4 to 5 feet long or 7 to 8 feet long, it's the same piece. So will it take longer? Yeah, you're moving around more, you're climbing around more. But being asked when we're going to finish. So it's something we really, we don't worry about it. It's going to go together. We tell you in dome school, we tell you in the book, check your foundation, see what's off, where it's off.
Does it pay to measure a radial line from the floor center to the hubs to see which are out, or is that necessary?
There are reference lines. When I do the drawings, there are 72-degree reference lines. There's 5 of them. Some of the domes, the 2 frequency and the 4 frequency and the 6 frequency, actually have 90-degree reference lines. So you can check that. Here we did a check from the middle of, get this right, where the 2 red struts are, the middle of that joint across to the middle of the blue strut, which is on the opposite wall, the middle of that blue strut, through the center point of the dome. We just did that yesterday. As we went around this thing, that's a cross check, that point across. And over there is the same way. Take the middle of these 2 red struts over here and go across to the blue strut that's sitting over here on this pentagon, going through the center point. It should be perfect. Correct yourself if you're off. Don't go around the dome and say, well, we're 2 inches too long or 2 inches too short, and we got around to the other side. No, 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 no. We tell you in the instructions. It's real simple. We'll give you dimension from the center point here. These 3 struts. Take a red and a red and a blue, and we'll give you dimension from here, that point, straight across to this point. That's 72 degrees. We run it through the calculator on the computer, and it says this from here, straight line across to that point, and it's a specific dimension. If it isn't, do something, correct it, move this out, move this in, you're off somewhere. Math doesn't change. Math says these numbers come out to 72 degrees. These numbers are this. And you can't say they're wrong. No, you're wrong somewhere. You didn't measure right. But being as accurate as you can be, you don't have problems. I shouldn't say you should not, you don't have problems. The majority of our domes, like I said, are done without even talking to us. You don't have to have us tell you things. It's in the construction manual, in the videos that we have. Was that the last blue strut? All right.
So we have a
Probably.
couple questions about correcting what you were just talking about. Where does the correction take place? Do you move the riser wall, or how would you correct?
Again, you don't have the dimension from here. The dimension on this particular dome is 10 foot 5 3/4 inches to the outside edge of the framing on each of these, all of them. This one, next one, all the way around. 10 foot 5 3/4 inches, not 10 foot 5 7/8 or 9/16 or some odd dimension. It's 3/4 of an inch, 12/16, not 11/16. So try to get it accurate. Don't waste your time from the standpoint of trying to get something corrected after you get all the way around. You want to start out, you want to get this positioning in here. And it's also why we tell you don't put anchor bolts in the concrete. They're specific. They got to be in a certain place. We do hold down brackets. Tessie, I'm going to give me the 2 hold down brackets that are in there.
Is that one?
No, the other ones right there. Yep, there they are. Most of our domes these days, we're providing these. These are hold down brackets. This is a HDU 5, I believe. This is an HDU 2 or 4. Read the numbers. This is an HDU 2. So they're different. This one has a lot more screws going into it than this one. So this one is in a heavier hurricane, earthquake zone. This one, we're talking about straight line winds normally in a non-earthquake zone for HDU 2. Where they go, not going to sit there. They're going to go along that edge. The smaller one, same way. It goes along on the corner of our riser struts. And the corner of the riser corners actually in this one are 2x8s. Again, it's a screen dome. We got 3/4 inch plywood on the outside skin. But normally the corners are done with a 3x10 lumber. It's #1 grade Doug fir. We get it out of Oregon.
Jump in for a second?
Yes.
Okay. Before you know that.
You're already there, huh?
Hey, I just want to jump in and show that Dick pointed out an easy way to get these top 5 in at once is to put them all in before you drive the pins in. That way they're not locked solid. You got a little play in them. So he was able to line all 5 of these. So now we just have to put in the last 10 pins and this will be complete. All right, Dennis.
Keep
That's all I
on up
got.
there. Keep talking.
So if you, I don't know how well you guys can hear me over the pounding, but I'm sure Dennis explained this earlier. I haven't been able to hear all of his commentary, but essentially the dome is to be a sphere. So there's, big deviations in foundation part or something's a little off. You kind of have to go. The smaller domes are harder to correct than the larger dome. So that's why we were doing a little bit of manipulation of the struts, trying to make everything fit. So we got up to this very top part. Dick essentially is to avoid any manipulations when the pins are in because it locks it in. We just essentially put all 5 in at the same time and then put the pins in as you can see. And with these last few pins, we will be complete.
Back to me. Okay. So we're now at 25 after, less than 2 hours. What?
Where's the Christmas?
Oh yeah, let's cut one down. The Norwegian, or such say Scandinavian heritage of mine, what you do is you put a Christmas tree on top, or the top of a tree is what it is, pine tree, on top of the structure when you're done, if you haven't had any accidents. So no one fell, no one had any problems. So we can do that. And we've done it on several of our domes here. Yeah, we're going to show something on one of these panels out here. Maybe a red, black one out here. How long does a 40-foot high profile framework take to put up? That should be no longer, well, it's all really dependent. How many people do you have? Are they comfortable on scaffolding? Are they comfortable climbing around on the dome? If not, as was the case with 4 guys who thought each one of them wasn't afraid of, each one of the other ones wasn't afraid of heights. It took them like 2 days to 3 days to put up their framework because all 4 of them were afraid of heights up on scaffolding. So it's very slow, but they did it. So get comfortable, be safe. In this case here, the height of this dome is so low that you move so fast that how do you put a safety harness on and what do you attach to? You need to be concerned. We don't have the safety railing up on the scaffolding because it's in the way of the dome. The dome is so small, but you need a safety railing around the top layer. You need 3 sections on that scaffold plank. You know, all these things are part of it. But it really comes back to a weekend, a long weekend is the average that we've seen with enough people to put up a 40-foot high profile dome, 36 high profile. It's got a lot more stress than this does. What?
Put in that last 5, it's a lot easier to put them all in and just push that down in.
Yeah. So basically what Dick did is up in the very top, you set this in place. Don't put a pin into it, but get them into that center hub on all 5 of them after having them set in the other end. Don't nail that pin in yet. And then you can, because it may be up a little higher, you can push that down, you can pound that pin in. And that's what he did. And those last 5 pins in went very easy.
So Dennis, when you were talking about the 40-foot, you know, the time to put up the shell, what does that include? Does it include the plywood, the riser walls?
Yeah, the riser wall, the struts, and the plywood on the outside. It's been done many times in 3 days to 4 days. The one that I kind of followed was a 49-foot diameter dome, which has 250 struts. There were 4 guys on the contractor's crew. All of them were comfortable on scaffolding, crawling around on domes. They had never done a dome before, but they were comfortable on heights. They did not come to dome school. They had not done a dome before. On Thursday, they finished putting the risers, the struts, and the exterior plywood panels in place. And on Friday, we're starting to build the extensions because we say build that after you got your plywood on the dome. So that was 4 days. Now, were they long days? Probably, because it was summertime. And here in Minnesota, you know, you work 10 hours, 11 hours. So that's all part of it, you know. Is it wintertime, you only work 6 hours. So, but it will vary too. Is the dome sitting like this, kind of right off the ground? Is it a slab on grade? That's easier. You can get around the outside easier. Do you need a lift? You saw this one done on scaffolding. We have domes that are done strictly with scaffolding. But if you had a larger dome and you had a scissors lift inside and your floor was able to support it because it was a concrete slab and you had a 6-foot wide opening that it was easy to get things through, like this dome in the back of me, we had a 6-foot wide opening, easy to get in. So with that, and you want a scissors lift that goes up 20 feet, 26 feet, you can help, you can add some things to the time there just from getting set up, but it's going to speed you up. What are you comfortable with? That's a lot of it. Where's your helpers? Yeah.
We're on break, I guess. Yeah, I made a couple of just enough.
They're in the middle of the strut.
Pretty close.
So we're screwing the panel on. Now we are probably going to screw these panels on, but what you're dealing with is we're tacking it on basically. And look at it, you know, is it in the middle of the strut here, the middle of the strut here? The next panel should go on in the middle of that strut. So that lines up with the tip down below. You've got a little bit of leeway that this could be down a little lower, but you need to nail on here for this piece of plywood.
I'm sorry.
That's a piece of plywood. It's going to cover that opening at that point. What I didn't talk about was why do we have some done and not the others done on the riser walls? When we pre-manufacture this for you for a kit, we're going to give you every other riser wall assembled, but we only have one corner. So this corner, there's a hub and a sleeve and a corner strut. If we use that to build this riser, you don't have it to build this riser wall. So you can't pre-build that riser wall. So we give you the strut already done, the base plate's already done. The studs going in here are pre-cut. All that comes to you pre-cut. And that's the job that you do when somebody doesn't want to climb scaffolding. You say, well, here, fill in this opening down here. Put the plywood on, put the studs in place and put the plywood on.
That's okay. I think
So we just showed you some samples here. We're fine, Daryl. He's decided to go. He wants to keep going. He wants to show it. Up just a little bit, maybe.
Hey, Dick, I'm gonna talk to you when this is done. So
All right,
so
right
you
there.
know. Yeah, it's coming. I was thinking I could just say hi. Just say hi real quick.
Yep, do that.
All right, guys. This is Nick. For a while.
A little over a year.
A
A little over a year. I've been working here. It's my
Yeah,
first
so
time.
first home you built, right?
Yeah, at least going all the way, you know, the whole shelf.
No, thanks, guys. It looks great. Looks great. This is Daryl.
16 years.
16 years. This isn't your first home then, probably, huh?
I put up a few.
A few.
Yeah. And then Dick, I know this definitely isn't your first home.
No, it's not.
No, he's,
I put quite a few of them.
yeah. Well, looks great, guys. You did a good job. Debbie over here, she helped us
I
out.
did. I was carrying the struts.
Yeah, this is her
Told me
first.
what color to pick up when I went and got them.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. It looked great. You guys did a good job. And yeah, thanks for letting us film you guys do this today. And yeah, like Dennis said, we just tacked those panels on temporarily. We're actually going to be on the top of the dome, kind of just for on those rainy occasions. So you can keep all your lawn furniture out there without it getting raining all the time. The rest of it will be open to enjoy this beautiful scenery.
You got one strut left.
Oh, so this blue strut that's remaining out of all the struts was the one that was originally for the doorway here. So
We,
if you buy a dome with us, you shouldn't have extra struts unless you know you're expecting them.
right. Yeah, we don't,
Eric, it was nice meeting all you guys. Thanks.
so yeah, we are going to give you the correct amount of struts. You get 2 extra sleeves in there. We've had a couple of people drop something from above and drop 10, 15 feet down onto a concrete floor and damage a sleeve or something. So then we learned it. We give you an extra hub and an extra sleeve, and we give you 1 extra red hub because you can use it on the top of your dome. A lot of people do that. That's what we started out. But what it ended up being, people said, okay, I built my whole dome. You gave me just the right amount of pieces. I can't talk about it. I can't explain it to somebody. My neighbors come over, my dad comes over. It's like, what can I say? How do I tell them what's inside of here? Because it's all built and closed up. So we give you 1 red hub. You can use it for your show and tell hub. And then we give you 2 sleeves. And if you haven't damaged something, you got 2 sleeves. You can show them how this thing fits together. So that's all part of what we have in the kit for you. We don't give extra struts. Has there been a mistake somewhere? I don't think there has been. I'm trying to think about anything. There may be one extra strut one time, but it was because we changed it in the process while it was being manufactured. We made changes to the extension openings. So they had 1 extra one. That was it. So have we got all the questions answered, at least for this go around?
Well, we have some questions, but they might be good for Dome Talk. We do have one question though about the triangles. Are the edges of the plywood triangles cut square, or are they angled to match the dihedral angles of the struts?
They are cut square. We tried this back in the 70s, cutting dihedral angles on there. It's about varies from a 5 to 7 degree angle for what's called the dihedral angle, which is the angle to cut this. So they touched perfectly. The problem we have is if you don't cut it exactly right, you may not put it on right either. It bumps the next panel over. That one comes over too far, now it bumps the next panel over. So instead of that, what we deal with, just so you know you're on split screen. Yep, right. So Carrie, did you want to put us on split screen? So we don't try to make this thing perfect. We downsize the size of those exterior panels. So we're dealing with something that may give us an 1/8 of an inch gap, might be 3/16, but no more than that. So that's what we're dealing with, trying to get this thing so that it's easy to put on. And when we were cutting them perfectly, people would go, well, I got to the hexagon grouping and there's one didn't fit, so I had to cut the last one. So this is how tight they should be or shouldn't be. Anything tighter than this is going to cause you some problems in bumping up to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So we're dealing with this in a simple manner. You've got a situation where you're going to be the owner builder. You're going to cut your own triangle panels. You're going to deal with this and having to cut it. For you to cut a dihedral angle in this side, which is different than this side, which is different than that side, you wouldn't do it. You couldn't do it. So don't really think that it's that perfect that you can get it to fit together. It's not a Petit Philippe watch, you know? It's your standard old bull of a watch, right?
Right, right.
I'm not gonna downgrade Bulova. I think I've got a Bulova on right now. So,
Well, we're at about 2 hours.
Yep.
So that's
We
not,
are.
not too bad with one new dome builder in the mix. So, yeah. Well, what do you think, Dennis?
well, I
I
think
heard you
we've
talking a lot, but I missed a lot of it. You feel like you're able to cover all the.
more stories like I normally do in dome school and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully you've enjoyed this and you've seen a lot of the detail. It's live. Mistakes are mistakes. You know, we had to show you the strap tie.
This might be the only real-time dome raising on the internet, possibly. I don't
Yeah.
know. I haven't seen one where they do it
No.
like this in real time. So.
No. So,
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. We had some great questions. We had some questions left over, but they were more general dome questions. So
sure.
I've given everyone the link to our next Dome talk on Zoom. And we are recording this, so it will be available as soon as Tanner gets the chance to get that up on YouTube. So stay tuned for that.
We'll have some
And-
additional, we'll have some additional footage as well of the foundation system going in. And so there'll be a couple little extra things once we get it uploaded online, just so it's not a repeat of what you guys have seen today. So
And do we also have a roofing video? Somebody did ask that. Do we have a video on roofing?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been the 2 different versions that we've got, I think, even up online for the dome Zoom room thing that we did. But Dome School has got video on that, and we update that. Even last year, we updated it when we had it.
You're always welcome to send questions to nsd@naturalspacesdomes.com. Some of the questions we had about, lists of builders, those types of things, you're welcome to contact Nancy or Debbie on those types of questions. And anything else that you guys would like to say to our audience before we turn them loose for their Saturday afternoon?
We enjoy doing this.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. We have Wi-Fi challenges, but I think it went real smooth and, and it's kind of nice that a couple things didn't go as smoothly as, normal, so that we had the opportunity to show the solutions to that. So
Well, and
Yeah. I'm glad. It looked like we had a lot of people show up, so that's awesome.
we did, and you guys were being supervised by an expert, it sounded like.
Oh, Tessa or?
I was
She's
Tessa
the
and
dome-
the
right.
grandson.
the
Yeah.
grandson, yeah.
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 so-
Yeah, he came out and said, "Are you done yet?"
I
So,
just am thrilled to have a porch dome. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There'll be lots of fun in that dome.
we'll get lots of photos up once it's 100% complete. We get screen
Yep.
on there and everything else, so you guys get a chance to see the end result when it's all finished.
I'll make a comment on that screen. We had the other screen dome up for 15 years. It snows in Minnesota. And we'd have 6 inches or more of snow on the screen, sitting on these panels that are like this.
Yeah. it's
Why?
amazing.
How? What's the physics of that? Well, I take it to be snow falls 1 snowflake at a time. So it just sort of layered this panel back and forth with snowflakes that stack themselves. And we get too worried at about 6 or 8 inches and we take our air compressor and blow it off from the inside. But it would have 6 inches of snow at any given time.
Thank you.
It's pizza
So-
time, guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
pieces
We'll
are-
say goodbye to everybody and thank you so much.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
It's gorgeous
All
day here. Hope it
Okay.
is there.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Carrie.
Thanks.
Dennis, you're gonna have to close the meeting.
I got her.
Okay.
All right. Wondered why we weren't going to get close. Okay.